Hey guys, and welcome back to another Conan Exiles video. Today we are diving into the brand new Fatality system coming in the Age of War Chapter 4, and fair warning, this video is going to get rather bloody. So without further ado, let's get started. Fatalities are a new feature of combat with this coming update, and they will allow you to execute select enemies in a fast but brutal animation. Outside of just looking cool, you'll also get some bonuses, so Fatalities can be a tactical advantage too. Firstly though, before we get swinging, Fatalities do have some qualifiers. Firstly, you can currently only perform a fatality on humanoid enemies. This includes, of course, enemy fighters, archers, etc., and generally any NPC you would consider human. This extends to some larger humans like the arena champion, however it does not include giant enemies like the champion of the Warmaker. As a general rule, if they are human like you can perform a fatality on them. Additionally, you can only perform fatalities with melee weapons. You can't execute enemies with your fists or with a bow, you also cannot execute enemies with a truncheon, nor can you currently use a Stygian Khopesh in the beta, though the Khopesh not having access to fatalities may be unintentional. Aside from that list, any other melee weapon is good to go. Also, if you would like to see all the Age of War Chapter 4 news early, consider supporting the channel over on Patreon, where you can get custom made wallpapers, Discord roles, end of video credits, and early access to full videos. Anyway, back to the fatalities. So when it comes to getting the chance to execute a fatality, it's not guaranteed. When you deal damage to an enemy that would have killed them, there's a chance they will drop down to 1 health and go into a staggered state. In this condition, enemies are rendered immune to status effects like bleed, and will stand there for about 5 or 6 seconds. If you stop your combo, face them and attack them again, you'll slide into position and enter into the fatality animation. It feels a tiny bit janky at times, and it is, although this is more of a paired emote animation, hence the sliding into position. It's also worth noting that because you need to slide into position, you can accidentally be blocked by other NPCs or potentially even other players. This is rather frustrating at times as it does take the control away from you. However, during that slide you are counted as inside of the fatality animation, and thus you are invulnerable to damage. We'll touch a bit more on that in a while. As for the chance to actually get that staggered animation, if my reading is correct, the chance seems to vary. For this data, I'm using the base game modifiers, which you can find through the command line. The fatality base chance appears to be set at 0.1. For reference, it appears that setting these values to 1 makes it a 100% guaranteed chance, at least from my testing, which would make the 0.1 value equivalent to a 10% chance of triggering the staggered state on any valid enemy. There's also a modifier called Fatality Max Chance, which is set at 0.4 or 40%. I'm guessing this might be a form of bad luck mitigation, where if you continually fail to roll correctly on the 10% chance, it will begin to increase up to a maximum of 40% until you get the fatality opportunity, at which point I would presume it will go back down to 10%. I don't really have any way of confirming this myself, but just based on, well, basic logic, this is how I'd expect it to function. There is also an overkill modifier set to 0.01. I have no idea what this is. It doesn't seem to affect the fatality buff, so I'm unsure exactly what it does. There's every chance it might be something more technical on the inside, but from what I could tell, it doesn't seem to affect gameplay. Whilst you're in the fatality animation itself, you are, as I mentioned earlier, invulnerable to all damage sources. However, this invulnerability will end as soon as the fatality itself ends, so, if you execute in a bad spot, you are going to get punished for it. Finally, when you execute a fatality, you will receive the fatality buff. This lasts for roughly 60 seconds and grants the following traits. You instantly receive a one-time heal worth 20% of your maximum health. You receive increases in strength and agility weapon damage by 10%, and you also receive an increase to stamina regen by 15%. Strangely, the patch note says this buff stacks, but it does not. Any new fatality buff overwrites the previous one. The buff stacking was not mentioned on the dev stream, and given the nature of the buffs, I don't think it should. The only feature that does seem to stack is the instant health boost. Each instance of the buff does indeed heal you by 20%, and that's what they might have meant by stacking in terms of the patch notes. So to recap the mechanics and the technicals, they are as follows. enemies hit with usually fatal damage have somewhere between a 10 and 40% chance to enter a staggered state that lasts for around 5 or 6 seconds. If you end your combo and attack them from the front, you'll enter into the Fatality animation, rendering you invulnerable for the duration of the animation itself. After the enemy dies, you'll receive the Fatality buff, giving you 20% of your health back, increasing stamina regen by 15%, and increases the damage you deal with strength and agility weapons by 10%. Now we've covered all the technical stuff, so I think it's about time we actually look at every fatality in the game for all the different weapon classes. Ultimately, at the end of this video, what I really wanted to know was, are fatalities actually worth doing? They definitely seem like a more fun-focused option on paper, though I will say, as admittedly not a great swordsman, fatalities actually saved me a lot of resources whilst I was testing it out during the blowback event, which you'll have seen some of the footage of throughout this video. I do think fatalities will actually have a pretty good place in the game as a sort of saving grace moment when the stars align and you're able to grab yourself some more health in a tight spot. Failing that, fatalities are just quite well done, they look really cool, and when you finish off a whole group of enemies and the last one gets that glorious fatality kill, well, you just love to see it. And there we have it, all you need to know about the new fatalities coming to Conan Exiles in the Age of War Chapter 4. Thanks for watching, and of course a massive thanks to our wonderful esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. I'm going to be covering the changes to the Purge soon too, so if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel to see all the new videos as soon as they come out, and check out the Patreon too if you want to see them even earlier. Again, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.